unique things about this broadcast is we do it live. We get one chance to do it. Therefore, we have to be flawless.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Okay, everybody, starting with shot 67.
Clock is paused.
This first song's quick. Everybody get ready.
10-4. 20 seconds. Seatbelt set.
Laid in 5.
Lock and load.
Ready to go.
15. 15.
Stand by VTR 7. Remember, we come out of the gate running.
Yes, sir.
10, 9, Ocho, 7, 6, 5, 4,
3.
Roll VTR 7. Fade up.
Since its first radio broadcast in 1929, music and the spoken word has been known for delivering hope and encouragement each week from the crossroads of the West.
We have 27 minutes and 56 seconds that we have to kind of put together, and we have to bring it right on to the second every single week.
Its constancy in an ever-changing world has been a hallmark of the program, week after week and decade after decade.
Stand by and cue Lloyd.
From the crossroads of the West, we welcome you to Temple Square in Solt-Lейк-City for music and the spoken word.
Ready, camera 1. Ready, 1, push. Take. About that 1.
This particular production really relies upon a lot of people, a lot of professionals that are their best in their field, working together to produce the program.
Each Sunday morning, more than 500 choir and orchestra members, backstage staff, and production crew arrive at Temple Square bright and early. They come to create yet another program of music and the spoken word, which is available to hundreds of millions of homes each week via radio and television stations around the world.
My responsibility is to make whatever presentation that the choir decides to do that morning. I want to do it as seamless and as unobtrusive as possible so that you can listen and the spirit of the music comes through.
Every broadcast must be unique and fresh. So after the hub of activity concludes Sunday morning, the choir and crew have no time to sit back and savor the successful completion of another episode.
This is a program that runs 52 weeks a year, and it has been for over 80 years. I've heard Jerry Otley tell me, and Mac Wilberg has said the same things, that a lot of people say, well, you know, it's really neat that you get to conduct this broadcast once a week. What do you do the other days? Which is, well, it takes quite a bit to get to that part on Sunday. So in a typical week, we would look at a lot of preparations going on. We try to work 8 weeks ahead.
Well, it all begins really for us on Tuesday when the team comes together in the afternoon for production meeting.
We talk about the different aspects of that broadcast, and we go through in detail the staging, each song, what is needed to support each song, whether they're soloists, whether we have the orchestras there.
Countless details must be attended to each week, from floral arrangements to distribution of music to choir and orchestra members to the placement of each person.
If they like what they see, they'll love what they hear. And that's so much of what we do, not just making the seating charts, but making sure that everyone in the loft looks good.
We want to make sure that they look as good as they sound, and we take that very seriously.
But with all the busyness, there is constancy at the heart of every broadcast.
There are things that music in the spoken word is, and there are things that it is not. For instance, it is not a worship service. I think the program has always been designed to be a non-denominational program to be enjoyed by people of many walks of faith. Also, it is not a concert. It is, in fact, as the title implies, a program of inspirational music and spoken word.
I think without diluting ourselves, we try to have a little something for everybody and to lift everybody up. And that is the purpose of the show.
It's not agenda-driven. It's not political. It's not harsh or challenging. It's a personal way of, how can I do this and do it better? That's what music and the spoken word does for people.
A growing national awareness of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir led to what some viewed as an experimental broadcast in July of 1929. The response, however, was immediate and positive, resulting in what is now the longest-running radio broadcast in history.
Radio in the 1920s was just getting off the ground, and President Grant was aware that this was a medium that perhaps the church ought to tap into.
We've all heard the story about KSL studio bringing over one microphone that they had and hanging up above the choir.
They had a young announcer named Ted Kimball. His father was Ed Kimball, he played the organ. And Ted Kimball climbed up on a ladder, and there was a microphone suspended from the ceiling, and he got as close to the microphone as he could, and then he began to talk, and he was the announcer.
Which I can't imagine the chore it was for the announcer to stand on a ladder and then quickly getting out of the way so that the choir could sing their numbers.
It was fairly primitive by today's standards, but he stayed on that, up on that ladder the whole time and just made the announcements.
It was aired to 30 radio stations, and I remember some of the quotes were from leading clergy that had responded to NBC about how favorably they had received the broadcast. And so but this was particularly interesting to the people that were working on the broadcast at the time, because it meant that exactly what they were trying to do had been accomplished. Those that started it and then build it, they build it right. And it really is easy to just follow the outline that's been set with music and the spoken word.
Initially, the broadcast consisted solely of music, but that changed in 1930 when a remarkable young man took over as announcer of the choir's numbers.
And in these swift passing scenes and seasons, there seems to come insistently, almost above all else, the compelling cry, "Take time for your children."
Richard L. Evans auditioned for the position. He was 30 years old, and he had that wonderful voice, and he was given the job. But by nature, he began to see that there was a little bit more that the radio audience could hear, and that was a little bit about something regarding the music. There was a message in the music. And he created what he called sermonettes.
"God's goodness hath been great to thee," said Shakespeare. "Should not his great goodness," said William Penn, "raise a sense of resolution to alter our course and mend our manners?"
He's an incredible man. He did the broadcast for over 40 years. He wrote the message every week. He was the producer of the broadcast, all while he was writing a nationally syndicated newspaper column. He was a father of 4 boys. He was president of Rotary International. He was also an apostle in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This was an unusual man. Now it's pretty much set. It's a rare moment that there's a change made in the spoken word on Sunday morning. But back in the day of Richard L. Evans, I know the story. I've read some of the historical accounts that he would be making changes and finishing his spoken word that morning before the broadcast.
Not too many years ago, in the early part of television, if the music and the spoken word had some kind of connection, it was serendipitous at best. But now we actually start with a theme.
We can pit daily our determination, discipline, grit, and sense of duty.
Lloyd and I will meet anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 weeks before any given broadcast, and we will talk about what might be a good message.
He will say to me, "You come up with some things that you want to write about, and then we'll figure out some music." Or he may say, "We've got to sing this, so could you write a spoken word that would fit with this?"
And the choir follows with praise for nature's goodness and splendor in the chorus, "Achieved is the glorious work from Haydn's creation."
Sometimes I'm able to select music that will be very tied into the message, and other times it may only simply reference the music.
With the addition of the spoken word to the choir's music, the broadcast settled into its signature style, a blueprint that really hasn't changed for more than 80 years. What did change was the advent of television, which expanded the broadcast's reach and eventually led to far greater focus on the visual elements of the program.
You can be a little tighter on choir, make sure you show the tops of pipes.
It's essentially the same as it was decades ago, but today there's more production, we have more visuals.
The next 3 songs are all together.
I started producing the broadcast in 1983. The program looked pretty much the same week to week to week. There's only 3 cameras. They were static, they were on tripods. And so whatever direction you looked with the choir, they were just kind of this wall of faces. It was very flat. We wanted more stations to take the program, and the only way to do that is to make it a well-produced program. Not only good musically, but we wanted it good visually, and that it was appealing. The very first thing we did was we tried to get cameras that moved. The tabernacle in the choir is big, and the only way to see that bigness and that grandeur of them, up on the stage, is to be able to see the shift of perspective. And you're going to do that if you can move the camera. We played with some different locations of putting the cameras, more up in the balconies. We now have a large jib arm, which is a very dynamic camera look, where that camera on the end of a large boom can fly over the orchestra or the choir and give us, a much bigger perspective of how large the choir is.
The production elements that go into making up a music and the spoken word have changed significantly over the 80 years that we've been doing this. Even over the last decade, you can tell the difference in the production quality of the broadcast, because we used to have maybe 3 or 4 cameras, but now that the number of shots that we take and the number of times the camera angle changes, it had to adapt because modern audiences have shorter and shorter attention spans. We expect to see a multitude of different images. Our cameramen are sitting across the street in the conference center working their art, but with joysticks on robot-controlled cameras, while we're in the tabernacle producing the broadcast. Our sound engineers are in the basement working on the broadcast sound, while we have the house engineer out in the audience making sure that the people that are visiting that particular day are hearing beautiful sounds.
When you're watching television and you see, say, a harp glissando, you expect to hear the harp. And so we are actually mixing to picture, so that you do hear the harp probably a little more than maybe the conductor would like in the mix, because visually you want to hear those instruments.
Periodically we'll have something fail someplace that will require us to use backup. And we do have backup solutions for just about every problem that we can imagine. We have more than one video control room that we're able to switch to if we need to. Having multiple cameras allows us to, even if a camera were to stop working, we could rely on the others. But we're fortunate that everything generally works.
Today, we've advanced to high definition, or 5.1 surround sound. And the arrangements of Mac Wilberg, I think, really bring some of the classic music to a younger audience that really identify now with the choir more than ever, which is wonderful to see.
The sound stage for most broadcasts of music and the spoken word has remained the same, an architectural marvel built by pioneer ingenuity and renowned for its acoustical properties.
I will now demonstrate the acoustics of the tabernacle without the aid of a microphone.
Knowing that if a pin drops, all over the room you're going to hear that. That then repeats itself with not only a choir and an organ, but with oftentimes a 100-piece orchestra. And trying to capture those sounds is very challenging.
The tabernacle is made of wood, it's made of plaster, and temperature, humidity, and the amount of people in the audience in the hall changes the tonal quality of the choir.
And the shape of the elliptical, the turtle shell essentially, creates a sound that you cannot replicate in any other concert hall anywhere.
They do have a signature sound. They have a sound that when people see the choir, they expect to hear. On a standard broadcast, there can be upwards of 80 microphones. We have mics everywhere. I mean, there are microphones hanging from the ceiling. There are the mics at the back of the room. There's microphones over the choir. There's microphones over the orchestra hanging. There's microphones on every instrument.
Technology has progressed to the point where lighting designer Lauren Morse can control the tabernacle's labyrinth of lights from his iPod.
It's great to be a Toys R Us kid.
But when it's time to change a bulb, he gets an up-close reminder of how the Mormon pioneers created this historic landmark from local timber, rawhide, wooden dowels, and the limited number of nails they could craft.
Come on.
They built this tabernacle out of what they had, which was nothing.
There's a spirit in the tabernacle that you feel. And I think it's a combination of hearing the choir's music with this beloved old pioneer building. It's more than about music. It's so much more than just music.
It's often said that the most important stop or control on any organ is the room in which it's located. And that's really the case here. There's something about the curved ceiling and the lath and plaster construction that contribute to the sound being both warm and clear. There's a wonderful clarity to this organ. You can hear even the softest pipes at the farthest distance in the room. Frequently, when I'm speaking to people who have come to hear the organ in recital or in concerts with the choir, one of the first things they'll ask me is, well, I read here in the program that there are 11,623 pipes. Where are they all? Because they look at the gold pipes here in the case and they think that they're all that size. But most of the pipes range from the size of a number 2 pencil up to maybe a few feet tall. And so they're all packed there behind those gold pipes, but you just can't see them. When you've been around organs for a while, you can generally tell by the shape of a pipe what family it belongs to, and then make an educated guess at which pipe that is on that keyboard.
As unique, renowned, and recognizable as the tabernacle organ is, when Sunday morning comes, its role is similar to all the people and pieces that make up music in the spoken word, to support a musical repertoire designed to lift spirits and lighten hearts.
The main star is not our cameraman and not the director and not even Lloyd. It's the choir, and it's the music, and it's the spirit that is portrayed through the music.
Mac Wilberg is so phenomenally gifted at putting together a program that is somehow diverse and unified at the same time, that appeals to many different people from all different walks of life. That is truly one of his gifts.
In a given program, we'll try to do a little something for everyone, mainly because our listenership is so diverse. Of course, you don't want all the music to sound alike, nor do you want it to be too contrasting. I think about texture of the music, the mood of the music, and even the key of the music. For instance, in this week's program, we'll begin with a piece which is based on the hymn, the doxology, or Praise God from whom all blessings flow. And it begins rather big and bright. It ends on a big A major. And in contrast to that very big piece that used full choir and full orchestra, we just have a very softer, slower piece that just begins with the clarinets and bassoons. That's how this particular week's broadcast is put together. Again, a lot of contrast, but at the same time, I think that the pieces fit together quite well.
With the music selected and the message written, the choir and orchestra gather on Thursday evening for a 2-hour rehearsal. And as the choir rehearses, those involved backstage can work through any issues that need to be resolved before Sunday morning.
Still look like maybe a shot or two, but
Our biggest challenge is always having enough rehearsal time to do what we want to do. During our Thursday evening rehearsal, we will not only rehearse the music, but we will do what we call tape and time, which is going straight through the piece from beginning to end, mainly for timing purposes.
Remember that the broadcast is a live show, so we tape in time so that we can see where it comes. We add all those up at the end of the rehearsal, and we see whether we're long or short.
Once in a while, someone will say to me with a smile on their face, "Why did you do that piece so slow?" or "Why did you do that piece so fast?" Well, sometimes out of necessity. During the actual broadcast, I have a little clock that I will refer to quite often during the broadcast. It will either say a minus number or a plus number. That is saying that we are under a certain amount or over a certain amount. I never sweat too much when we're under, because you can always adjust your timings. It's when it says plus or we are over on our timings, that's when one starts to sweat a little bit.
My second broadcast here, I was going into conducting my last number, and I think I had to make up about 20 seconds going into that last piece, and I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to make up this time? And we took that piece faster than we've ever sung it before, but we ended on time. It's a little bit like landing an airplane and trying to hit that mark, and we made it, but my heart was beating pretty fast. So.
Then we get a recording of the Thursday night rehearsal and spend the next maybe Friday or maybe into Saturday going through the music and the sheet music and blocking out camera shots to make sure that when the altos are singing, we see the altos. When an instrument in the orchestra is playing for solo, that we see those.
Thursdays quickly give way to Sundays, when at 7:25 a.m., the choir and orchestra members are dressed and in their seats, knowing they have exactly 2 hours to rehearse, do a full technical run-through, take a short break, and be back in their seats 5 minutes before that week's countdown begins. Then at precisely 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, a new episode of Music in the Spoken Word begins. It will feature new music, a new message, and a time-honored tradition over 80 years in the making.
It's like the magic happens. Everybody comes together, gets all those pieces put together, and that comes across on the show.
Roll BTR 7. Fade up.
A lot of people say that it looks so effortless sometimes. You know, it doesn't look that tough. But you've got all of those people who have been just giving their very best all week. And then the show's over, and it all starts over again.
It's this train that just keeps running, and we hold on and do the best we can to bring honor to this marvelous broadcast and the history of this broadcast.
Part of what is truly amazing about the broadcast is that despite this week in, week out, what some people might call the monotony of doing this over and over, that the broadcast doesn't become stale. Everybody that has an input, whether it's technical, creative, they're able to make the broadcast fresh.
To listen to it, to watch it, to enjoy it, all of a sudden you realize the many, many things that are wonderful in this world.
I watched and enjoyed the broadcast for many years before I became involved with it, never knowing how complicated it was, nor all the people that it takes in order to make the program.
Only those involved each week know the hours of work and the depth of the detail that go into each new program. Remarkably, they never tire of the process because they, like countless others, have felt the spirit this unique program shares with the world every week.
what a joy it has been through my tenure working with the choir to be involved in that, to be able to be here Sunday morning and be inspired myself.
This is what it's really all about. People sharing their very best. In this case, music. It is the universal language, and it's a language that speaks to your heart in such a way that no matter how bad your day was, your day just got better.
There are times I sit in the tabernacle and I think, this is the place Brigham Young spoke, and John F. Kennedy, and presidents and church leaders. And I think I am privileged to be able to speak in this tabernacle every week. Those are those moments that you feel very humbled and grateful to be some small part of this remarkable organization of the Tabernacle Choir.
This music is affecting lives and spirits and emotions and hearts all over the world. That in of itself is very satisfying. But the biggest benefit for me is I get to be here every Sunday morning and listen to this incredible music.